I never imagined I would become a pawn in a game I didn't even know was being played. The first time I met Nathaniel Blackwood, it was under the shimmering chandeliers of a charity gala, the kind of event that felt more like a stage for the rich to flaunt their affluence than an actual gathering for a good cause. His presence was magnetic. He radiated an aura that commanded attention without uttering a single word. Tall, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through me, he exuded an unsettling confidence that both intrigued and intimidated me. I was just a modest art curator, a far cry from the world he inhabited, but somehow he noticed me amid the sea of glitzy gowns and tailored suits. As the evening unfolded, he approached me with an air of casual arrogance that made my heart race. Our conversation started innocently enough, discussing the pieces on display, but it quickly spiraled into a debate on art and its intrinsic value. I was drawn to his intellect, the way he articulated his thoughts with such fervor and conviction. I found myself laughing at his dry humor and leaning in closer, captivated by the man behind the billionaire facade. Yet, there was a darkness lurking beneath his charm, a sense of detachment that hinted at the coldness within him. In the months that followed, Nathaniel and I found ourselves entangled in a whirlwind of passion and turmoil. I was swept off my feet, living in a dream that felt too good to be true. He showered me with affection, taking me to extravagant dinners and exclusive art exhibitions. But as I began to let my guard down, I noticed the way he treated people around him, like they were mere pawns in his meticulously crafted game of life. I convinced myself that I was different, that somehow I had cracked the code to reach his heart, but deep down, I feared I was just another piece on his chessboard. It didn't take long for the cracks in our seemingly perfect relationship to show. Nathaniel's business dealings were shrouded in secrecy, and I often felt like I was living in a carefully curated illusion. He would share fragments of his life, but the more I learned, the more I realized that his heart was locked away behind steel walls. I wanted to be the one to break through, to understand the man hidden beneath the billionaire persona. But every time I reached out, he would pull away, retreating into the shadows of his unresolved past. The day everything changed was etched in my memory like a scar. I had been invited to a high-stakes meeting with Nathaniel, a gathering that felt more like a battlefield than a discussion. I walked into the conference room, my heart racing, only to find Nathaniel surrounded by a group of powerful businessmen, their eyes cold and calculating. As they began to discuss a merger that would solidify his empire, I realized I was nothing more than a bargaining chip in a game I was too naive to understand. They referred to me casually, as if I were an object rather than a person, and I felt my stomach twist in knots. Nathaniel sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable, and in that moment, I realized I was merely a pawn in his quest for dominance. I wanted to confront him, to demand an explanation, but the words caught in my throat. He had used me, whether he realized it or not, to bolster his image, to showcase the softer side of the ruthless billionaire. I was the art curator he dated, the woman who made him seem more relatable, more human. And yet, as I looked into his eyes, I saw a flicker of something that made me believe he was fighting a war within himself. It was a fleeting glimpse of vulnerability, but it was enough to keep me tethered to him, even as my heart began to shatter. In the days that followed, I oscillated between anger and despair. I began to question everything, the love we had built, the moments we shared. I felt like I was standing on the precipice of a chasm, staring into the abyss, unsure if I should leap or turn back. The cold truth was that Nathaniel would never change. He was a man defined by his ambition, and I was just a temporary distraction in a life filled with calculated moves. Yet, as much as I tried to pull away, I found myself drawn back to him, torn between the bitter reality of our situation and the lingering hope that maybe, just maybe, I was the one who could thaw his icy heart. The days turned into a blur of emotions, a chaotic dance between heartache and longing. I was trapped in a whirlwind of memories, replaying every laugh, every stolen kiss, every moment that had made me believe in the possibility of us. I wandered through art galleries, searching for solace in the colors and forms that had once brought me joy. But now, everything felt muted. overshadowed by the chilling realization that I had become a pawn in Nathaniel's game. I spent countless hours in my studio, surrounded by canvases, trying to pour my pain into my art. The brush strokes felt heavy, each one a reminder of my shattered illusions. I painted a scene of a lone figure standing on the edge of a cliff, overlooking a stormy sea, an embodiment of my turmoil. It was as if the canvas reflected my heart, a tumultuous ocean filled with crashing waves of despair and hope. I wanted to scream at Nathaniel, to show him how he had used me, how he had toyed with my heart like it was just another asset in his empire. But the thought of confronting him filled me with dread. Yet, despite the hurt, I found myself drawn back into his orbit. I would catch glimpses of him at events, his sharp suits and confident demeanor captivating the crowd. I could feel the weight of his presence from across the room, and it was intoxicating. It was maddening how I could still feel that spark, even knowing the truth of our relationship. The way he looked at me when he thought no one was watching, the flicker of something deeper in his eyes, made me believe there was more to him than the cold facade he wore like armor. One evening, I received a text from Nathaniel, asking me to meet him at our favorite cafe. My heart raced with anticipation and trepidation as I made my way there. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was going to say something that would either break me or set me free. When I arrived, he was already seated, his expression serious, almost pained. "I've been thinking about us," he began, his voice low and gravelly, "about how I've treated you." My breath caught in my throat as I waited for him to continue. "I never meant for you to feel like you were just a part of my strategy. You mean more to me than I've let on." I wanted to believe him, to cling to the hope that there was still a chance for us. But his words felt like a double-edged sword. "Then why did you let me feel that way?" I shot back, the hurt spilling out as I fought to keep my composure. "Why use me as a pawn in your game?" Nathaniel ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that revealed his frustration. "I thought I could keep my world separate. I thought I could protect you from the chaos of my life." His blue eyes, typically so guarded, flickered with something raw and vulnerable. "But I see now that I was wrong. You're not a pawn. You're the only person I've ever cared about." His admission hung in the air between us, heavy and electric. I wanted to reach out, to close the distance that felt like an insurmountable chasm, but doubt gnawed at me. Could I trust him? Could he truly change? Or was I merely seeing what I wanted to see? "I need to know if you're willing to fight for this, for us," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because I don't want to lose you." As I stared into his eyes, the turmoil within me raged on. I had loved him fiercely, but love wasn't enough if it meant being a pawn in his game. Yet, the flicker of hope ignited a spark within me, a reminder that maybe, just maybe, love could transcend the coldness of ambition. And as I looked at him, I realized that perhaps the greatest risk was not in loving him, but in walking away and never knowing what might have been. If you're as captivated by this journey as I am, join me as we navigate the twists and turns of love and ambition. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters in this unfolding story. The air between us crackled with unspoken words, a tension that could only be rivaled by the storm brewing outside. I felt my heart hammering in my chest, each beat echoing the uncertainty that loomed like a dark cloud. Nathaniel's gaze bore into mine, searching for something, an answer perhaps, or a sign that I could forgive him. But could I? Could I truly let go of the pain he had caused? The way he had manipulated my heart like it was nothing more than a game piece? His vulnerability was disarming, and I found myself teetering on the edge of forgiveness. "What do you mean by fight for us?" I asked, my voice trembling as I braced myself for his answer. "What does that even look like after everything?" He leaned in closer, the intensity of his presence wrapping around me like a blanket. "It means being honest with each other, no more secrets. It means letting go of this facade that I've built around my life, showing you the real me, the messy, complicated parts." His words were like a balm on my wounded heart, but I couldn't shake the feeling that promises were easy to make in the heat of the moment. "What if you can't change?" I challenged, my throat tightening. "What if this is just another tactic to keep me in your orbit? I can't be your pawn anymore, Nathaniel." I deserve more than that. He flinched at my words, as if I had struck him. You're right. I've been selfish. I thought I was protecting you by keeping you at a distance. But in doing so, I only pushed you away. I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I can promise to try. To show you that I'm willing to fight against my own nature, against the very things that have kept me distant. You're worth it. Those 3 words hit me like a wave. Worth it. How often had I questioned my value in his eyes? Had I been just another trophy in his well-curated collection? My heart wavered, caught between the desire to believe him and the remnants of hurt that clenched at my insides. I don't want to be part of a strategy, Nathaniel, I whispered, tears threatening to spill. I want to be someone you choose, not someone you settle for because it's convenient. His expression softened, the hard edges of his persona melting away as he reached out to take my hand. The warmth of his skin against mine sent shivers down my spine, igniting a flicker of hope. I don't want you to think that way, he said softly. You are not a fallback plan, and I never intended for you to feel that way. I want to build something real with you, something that's not just a means to an end. My heart raced at the possibility of a future, but doubt still lingered like a shadow. And if you falter again? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What if I give you my heart again, only to find out that you haven't truly changed? I can't promise you that I'll never make mistakes, he replied earnestly, his blue eyes locking onto mine with fierce determination. But I can promise that I will fight for you, for us. I will show you my truth, and I will work every day to prove that you are everything to me. I want to be a better man for you. The sincerity in his voice tugged at my heart, and for a moment, I allowed myself to envision a future where we could be together, free from the constraints of his ambitions. But the scars of the past still ran deep, and I wrestled with the fear of repeating my mistakes. I need time, I said finally, my voice trembling as I broke the intense gaze we held. I need to know that this isn't just a moment of vulnerability for you, but a promise you're willing to keep. I understand, he murmured, his thumb brushing over my knuckles, sending warmth coursing through me. Take all the time you need. Just know that I'll be here, ready to show you the love you deserve. In that moment, amidst the chaos of my emotions, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. I was terrified, but maybe, just maybe, he was right. Maybe love was worth the risk, worth the fight. As the cafe buzzed around us, I realized that some battles were worth waging, even against the cold, unyielding nature of ambition. The storm outside raged on, a fitting backdrop for the tumultuous emotions swirling within me. I could still feel the warmth of Nathaniel's hand on mine, a stark contrast to the icy grip of fear that had taken residence in my heart. I wanted to believe him, to trust that he was capable of change, but the whispers of doubt grew louder, drowning out the flicker of hope he had ignited. As I stared into his eyes, searching for the truth behind his promises, I wondered how many times I had fallen for the same song and dance. The way he looked at me, with a mixture of longing and regret, felt familiar yet foreign. It was the look of a man who had built walls so high that even he struggled to see over them. I could sense his desperation, his longing to break free from the chains of his past. But was I strong enough to stand by him as he fought those battles? I don't want to lose myself again, I confessed, my voice a fragile whisper. I poured everything I had into us once, and when it fell apart, I didn't recognize myself anymore. I don't want to go through that again. He nodded, understanding etched across his features. I get it. I've seen how my choices have affected you. I never meant for you to feel lost or like you were just part of a game. You deserve better than that, and I want to be the man who gives you that. His words wrapped around me, a comforting embrace against the chill of my uncertainty. But I couldn't ignore the shadows lurking in the corners of my mind, reminders of betrayal and heartbreak. You say you'll fight for us, but what does that even mean? I need to see more than just words. Actions speak louder, Nathaniel. I need to know you're serious. I promise I will show you, he said, his voice steady and filled with resolve. I'll start by being transparent. I'll let you into my world. the one I've kept locked away for so long. You deserve to see all of me, the good, the bad, the messy. I want you to understand why I've acted the way I have." As he spoke, I felt a flicker of curiosity ignite within me. What lay behind the carefully constructed facade? What secrets had he buried beneath layers of ambition and cold detachment? I wanted to peel back those layers, to discover the man hidden beneath the billionaire exterior. But as exhilarating as that thought was, it was also terrifying. "I want to believe you," I admitted, taking a deep breath as I wrestled with the weight of my emotions. But trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight. It takes time, and I don't know if I'm ready to step back into your world just yet. "I'll wait," he replied earnestly, his grip on my hand tightening. "I'll wait as long as it takes. All I ask is that you let me prove to you that I can be the man you deserve." His sincerity pierced through the fog of my doubt, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of hope. I could see the flicker of the man I once loved, the one who had made me laugh, who had held me close in moments of vulnerability. But alongside that spark was a reminder of the pain he had caused, a reminder that I had to protect my heart. "I don't want to be a backup plan," I said again, the words heavy on my tongue. "I need to know that you're not just saying these things to keep me around while you figure out what you really want." He released a shaky breath as if my words had struck a chord deep within him. "I understand why you feel that way. It's my fault you've been left with those doubts. I'll do everything I can to change that. I want to be the one who chooses you, not just as a pawn in some game, but as the love of my life. You're not just an option to me. You're the only one I want." Tears brimmed in my eyes as his words settled in my heart. The sincerity in his voice was undeniable, and for a moment, I allowed myself to imagine a future where we could truly be together, where love could conquer the ghosts of our past. But the road ahead was fraught with uncertainty, and I knew we would have to navigate it carefully. "Then show me," I whispered, my heart pounding with a mix of hope and trepidation. "Show me that you're serious about this. I want to believe in us, but I need to see it to feel it." As the storm continued to rage outside, I found a flicker of warmth amidst the chaos. Maybe love was worth the risk, worth the leap into the unknown. And maybe, just maybe, Nathaniel could be the man to help me reclaim my heart. The storm outside howled like a beast, but inside, Nathaniel's gaze bore down on me, steady and unwavering. I could feel the tension between us, a taut string ready to snap or sing. I searched his eyes for clarity, for a sign that what he offered was genuine and not just another hollow promise. I had danced this dance before, and the scars of my past were still fresh, a constant reminder of the pain that lingered long after the music stopped. "I need to know who you really are," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, as if raising it would shatter the fragile moment we shared. "You've built these walls, and I can't keep knocking on them without knowing what's on the other side." Nathaniel's expression softened, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of vulnerability that made my heart ache. "I've hidden myself for so long," he confessed, his voice low and raw. "I thought it was the only way to protect myself, to protect you. But in doing so, I've only pushed you away, and it's a regret I carry every single day." His admission struck me like a lightning bolt, illuminating the shadows of my own fears. I had wanted to believe he was just a cold billionaire, using me as a pawn in his high-stakes game. But beneath that icy exterior lay a man wrestling with his demons. My heart ached for him, yet I couldn't ignore the fact that I had my own battles to fight. "Nathaniel," I began, my voice trembling. "I want to help you, but I can't do it at the cost of losing myself again. I need to see the real you, the flawed and messy parts that make you human. Can you show me that?" His eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen before: determination. "I will," he promised, as he took a step closer, the space between us shrinking. "I'll start with my family. You deserve to know the truth about my past, the choices that shaped me into the man I am today. It's time I let someone in, and that someone is you." I felt a rush of emotion at his words, a mixture of hope and trepidation. The thought of stepping into his world, of facing the chaos behind the billionaire facade, was daunting. but perhaps it was time to confront the ghosts of his past together. "Okay," I said, my heart racing. "I'll meet your family, but we do this together. No secrets." He nodded, relief washing over his features. "Together," he echoed, and in that moment, I felt a shift in our dynamic. We were no longer just players in a game. We were allies, fighting for something worth saving. As the storm raged on outside, I felt a warmth spreading through me, igniting a flicker of courage I didn't know I had. "But know this," I added, my voice firm. "If I'm going to dive into your world, you have to understand that I won't tolerate being treated like an afterthought. I need to feel valued, cherished." "I promise you will be," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "You are my priority now, and I will show you that every day. I want to prove to you that I can be the man you deserve, not just in words, but in actions." Tears welled in my eyes as I absorbed his commitment. In that moment, I felt the walls around my heart begin to crack. It was terrifying, yet exhilarating. Love was always fraught with risk, but perhaps this time it could be different. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice shaking slightly. "What if we fall apart again? What if this is just another illusion?" He reached out, cupping my face in his hands, his touch igniting a warmth that spread through me like wildfire. "We'll face those fears together. I refuse to let you go without a fight. Just trust me." As I stared into his eyes, I saw the flicker of a man who was willing to try, and for the first time, I felt the weight of my doubts begin to lift. Maybe this was the beginning of a new chapter for us, a chance to rewrite our story. So, I invite you, dear reader, to share your own stories of love, heartbreak, and redemption in the comments below. Let's connect through our experiences and explore the themes that resonate with us. After all, we're all navigating our own storms, and sometimes it helps to know we're not alone in this journey. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions, a blend of anxiety and anticipation. With each passing moment, Nathaniel and I were crossing boundaries we had once tiptoed around, venturing deeper into a territory that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. I found myself caught in a delicate dance between hope and caution, my heart racing at the prospect of meeting his family, yet weighed down by the fear of facing their judgments and expectations. As we prepared for the meeting, Nathaniel was a mix of confidence and vulnerability, his usual stoic demeanor cracking just enough to let me see the man beneath the surface. He would catch my eye across the room, and in those fleeting moments, we shared a silent understanding, a promise that we were in this together. Still, each smile he offered felt like a fragile glass, beautiful yet precarious, and I was terrified of shattering it with my insecurities. The day arrived with a chilling bite in the air, the world outside cloaked in gray clouds that mirrored my apprehension. Nathaniel had arranged for us to meet at his family's estate, a sprawling mansion that loomed like a fortress. As we approached, the grandeur of the place was overwhelming, and I felt the weight of its history press down on me. Each step I took felt like a step into unknown territory, where I would be scrutinized under the watchful eyes of those who had shaped him. When we entered, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken expectations. Nathaniel's family greeted us with cool politeness, their eyes lingering on me with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. I could feel the tension in the air, a palpable barrier that separated us from the warmth I had hoped for. I glanced at Nathaniel, who stood tall and resolute, his presence a reassuring anchor in this sea of uncertainty. As dinner progressed, the conversation flowed around me, a blend of laughter and sharp wit that seemed alien to my anxious heart. I watched Nathaniel engage with his family, an effortless charm that masked the turmoil of his past. But I could see the flicker of discomfort in his eyes when they began to speak of expectations, of future plans that did not include me. It was a reminder that I was not just a part of his life. I was an outsider in a world that had always seemed impenetrable. I felt a surge of protectiveness for him, the need to defend our bond against the looming shadows of his family's opinions. As they probed him about his business ventures and future prospects, I leaned forward, my voice steady as I interjected. "Nathaniel is doing incredible things, and I admire his drive and passion. The table grew quiet, and all eyes turned to me, surprise dancing across their faces. I could see the flicker of pride in Nathaniel's gaze, and it warmed my heart. But the moment was fleeting. One of his brothers, a sharp-tongued man with a glint of skepticism, raised an eyebrow. "But can you really keep up with him? This world demands more than just admiration. It requires a certain resilience." The words stung, but I refused to let them pierce my heart. I looked Nathaniel in the eye, seeking the strength that had brought me this far. "I believe in him," I replied, my voice firm, "and I believe in us. It's not about meeting expectations, it's about supporting one another through every challenge." The silence that followed was heavy, and for a moment, I feared I had crossed a line. But Nathaniel's hand found mine under the table, squeezing it gently, grounding me in that moment of vulnerability. It was a silent acknowledgement that we were fighting this battle together, and I could feel the walls around my heart beginning to crumble. As dinner came to a close, I could sense the shift in the room. My words had stirred something, a crack in the facade that Nathaniel's family had built around their expectations. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about us, and the love we were willing to fight for. I took a deep breath, knowing that regardless of their acceptance, we were forging our path, one filled with complexities and uncertainties, but also with the undeniable spark of something real. As we left the mansion, the cold air wrapped around us like a blanket, and I turned to Nathaniel, my heart racing with the thrill of what we had faced together. "Whatever happens, I'm here," I whispered, and he smiled, a genuine warmth that lit up his features. That moment, under the darkened sky, felt like a turning point, a promise that no matter how cold the world could be, we would face it with warmth and love in our hearts. As we stepped out of the mansion, the biting cold seemed to fade, replaced by an undeniable warmth that radiated from Nathaniel. The night air was thick with unspoken words, each breath we took together amplifying the bond we had forged amid the scrutiny of his family. I could still feel the weight of their gazes on my back, but I was no longer paralyzed by their judgment. Instead, I found strength in what had just transpired, in the way I had stood up for us, and in Nathaniel's unwavering support. The drive back to his apartment was filled with silence, but it was a comfortable one. I could sense the turmoil brewing inside Nathaniel, the pressure of expectations clashing with the love he felt for me. I wanted to reach out, to reassure him that we were stronger than the doubts that had been cast in our direction, but I also knew he needed time to process everything. When we finally arrived, Nathaniel turned to me, his expression a mix of gratitude and vulnerability. "You were incredible tonight," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't expect you to stand up like that. It means everything to me." I smiled, feeling the corners of my heart soften. I meant every word. "You're not just some trophy to be showcased. You're so much more than that. I see you, Nathaniel, the real you, and I'm proud of everything you've accomplished." His eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen before. A flicker of hope, maybe? Or perhaps a realization that the barriers he had built around himself were beginning to dissolve. But what if they never accept you? What if I'm just dragging you into a world that will always see you as an outsider? His vulnerability tugged at my heart. I stepped closer, wrapping my arms around him, feeling the tension in his body start to ease. "It doesn't matter what they think. I'm not here to win their approval. I'm here for you. I choose you, Nathaniel, every single day." He drew in a deep breath, his gaze intense as it locked onto mine. "You have no idea how much that means. For so long, I've used people, manipulated situations to get what I want. I never thought I could let someone in, not like this." "Then don't think of it as letting someone in. Think of it as sharing the journey. We're in this together. It's not about perfection, but about being real with each other." In that moment, I saw the walls he had built around his heart crack just a little more. It was a fragile moment, but it felt electric, like a promise that we could face whatever challenges lay ahead. He kissed me then, a gentle press of lips that ignited a fire within me, a connection that transcended all the doubts and fears that had once loomed large. As we pulled away, I could see the flicker of determination in his eyes. Let's take it one step at a time. I want this, us, but I need to figure out how to balance everything. My family's expectations don't just vanish overnight. I understand, I replied, my fingers brushing against his cheek, tracing the line of his jaw. But we'll navigate this together. It won't always be easy, but I promise to be by your side, to face the cold and the warmth. A smile tugged at his lips, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of hope in his expression, a hint that maybe he could embrace this love we were building. Together, he echoed, the weight of those words hanging between us like a vow. That night, as we sat wrapped in each other's arms, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were at the beginning of something monumental. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but I had faith in us, in our ability to weather the storms. Nathaniel might be a billionaire with a cold facade, but beneath it all, I was beginning to uncover the warmth of a man who had learned to love, even if he hadn't realized it yet. The days that followed were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, each moment wrapped in uncertainty, yet illuminated by the warmth we had ignited that night. Nathaniel and I settled into a routine, but it was a delicate dance, one that required both of us to learn how to balance our lives, his as a billionaire heir and mine as the woman who loved him. Each public appearance felt like a tightrope act, where the stakes were high, and one misstep could send us tumbling into the abyss of judgment. I saw how Nathaniel struggled with the expectations of his family, the weight of their legacy pressing down on him like a heavy shroud. He oscillated between the man he was expected to be and the man he yearned to be, the man he was becoming with me. There were moments when the walls would close in around him, and I could see the conflict etched on his face. Yet, each time, he would find his way back to me, as if my presence was the anchor he desperately needed. One evening, as we prepared for a gala his family was hosting, I could feel the tension crackling in the air. Nathaniel was pacing the living room, his tie half knotted as he glanced in the mirror. "What if they say something? What if they make it uncomfortable for you?" he muttered, his hands running through his hair in frustration. I stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder to still him. "We've faced worse, Nathaniel. Just remember that I'm not here to win their approval. I'm here to support you. You don't have to put on a show for them. Just be yourself." He turned to me, eyes filled with a mix of admiration and fear. "But what if being myself isn't enough? Then we'll redefine what enough means together," I replied softly, hoping to break through the armor he wore. "You're not just a billionaire. You're a person with dreams, fears, and a heart that beats fiercely for the ones he loves. That's what matters." He took a deep breath, and I could see a flicker of resolve as he nodded. "All right, let's do this." The gala was a spectacle, a sea of glittering gowns and tailored suits, laughter mingling with the clinking of champagne glasses. As we entered, the air thickened with whispers, the weight of judgment palpable. I held on to Nathaniel's hand tightly, feeling the tension radiate from him. But he didn't pull away. He leaned into me, grounding himself as we moved deeper into the crowd. Throughout the evening, I could feel the scrutinizing gazes of his family, their disapproval like a cold wind brushing against my skin. But with Nathaniel by my side, I found an unexpected strength. Each time someone cast a judgmental glance our way, I reminded myself of the warmth we had shared, the promise we had made. Then came the moment I had both anticipated and dreaded, a confrontation with his mother, a woman whose icy demeanor matched the opulence of the hall. "Nathaniel," she began, her voice sharp as glass, "is this really the company you wish to keep? You know how important appearances are." I felt Nathaniel tense beside me, but I refused to let her words shatter the resolve we had built. "With all due respect, Mrs. Caldwell, I am not here to conform to your expectations. I'm here for Nathaniel, and that's all that matters." The silence that followed was deafening. I held my breath, bracing for the fallout, but Nathaniel's grip on my hand tightened, a silent show of support. For the first time, I saw a flicker of defiance in his eyes, a spark ignited by my words. "Mom, I'm tired of pretending. I love her. And if you can't accept that, then that's on you, not us." His mother's face hardened, but I could see the walls she had built around herself begin to tremble. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental, like we were finally stepping out of the shadows and into a light of our own making. As the night wore on, I could sense a change in the atmosphere. The tension that had once suffocated us began to dissipate, replaced by a fragile understanding, an acknowledgement that love, in its purest form, could challenge even the most deeply entrenched beliefs. By the time we left the gala, the cold night air felt different. It was no longer biting. It was invigorating. Nathaniel turned to me, his expression a mix of determination and relief. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You stood up for us tonight. You've made me realize that I can choose my own path." And in that moment, I knew we were no longer just navigating a treacherous path. We were forging our own way, hand in hand, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. As the weeks rolled into months, Nathaniel and I found ourselves entwined in a world that was both intoxicating and terrifying. The echoes of the gala lingered with us, a haunting reminder of the battle we had fought against the expectations that sought to bind us. Yet, amid the chaos, we discovered a rhythm, a secret language that only we understood. Each stolen moment together felt like a rebellion against the suffocating grip of his family's legacy. One late afternoon, as golden rays filtered through the large windows of Nathaniel's penthouse, I watched him from the kitchen, his silhouette framed against the sunset. He was deep in thought, his brow furrowed, and I could sense the weight of his responsibilities pressing down on him like a storm cloud ready to burst. I poured 2 cups of coffee, hoping to share a moment of solace before the world outside intruded again. "Hey," I said softly as I approached him, placing a steaming cup on the table beside him. "You look like you've been wrestling with the universe." He chuckled lightly, but his eyes remained shadowed, more like wrestling with my family's expectations. They want me to take over the company fully, but every time I think about it, I feel trapped. I sat beside him, my heart aching for the turmoil he faced. "You don't have to do it alone, you know. You have me. If you want to carve a new path, I'll be right there with you." His gaze met mine, and for a moment, the chaos of the world faded. "How did I get so lucky?" he whispered, the vulnerability in his voice striking a chord within me. "Luck has nothing to do with it," I replied, reaching for his hand. "We chose each other, Nathaniel. That's what matters." Our connection deepened in those moments, where words were unnecessary and silence spoke volumes. But beneath the surface, I could feel the storm brewing, the inevitable confrontation with his family looming like a dark cloud. I had witnessed their disapproval, and while Nathaniel stood firm, I worried for him. The pressure of their expectations weighed heavily on his shoulders, and I feared the day when he might buckle under the strain. A few days later, I received a call that made my heart race. Nathaniel's mother had summoned me for a meeting, a request drenched in formality but laced with the undertones of confrontation. I felt a knot tightening in my stomach as I prepared myself for the inevitable clash. The meeting took place in a lavish cafe, the kind where the air was thick with the scent of fresh pastries and rich coffee, but I could hardly taste anything but my apprehension. Mrs. Caldwell was seated at a corner table, her demeanor as cold as the marble that surrounded us. "Thank you for coming," she said, her tone clipped. "I wanted to discuss your relationship with Nathaniel." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I appreciate your concern, but Nathaniel and I are happy together. I'm not here to change him or fit into your expectations." Her eyes narrowed, a hint of surprise flickering across her face. "You're quite bold, aren't you? But Nathaniel's future is at stake. You must understand that this family has a reputation to uphold." "Reputation?" I echoed, my voice steady. "You mean the facade that keeps him from being truly happy? Nathaniel deserves to live his life authentically, not shackled by the fear of your judgment." The silence that followed was charged, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. She was not used to being challenged, and yet, there was something in her gaze that shifted, perhaps a crack in the armor she had built over the years. "Do you truly love him?" she asked, her voice softer, almost vulnerable. "With every part of my being," I replied, feeling the warmth surge through me. "And I will fight for that love, even if it means standing up to you." Her expression softened, just for a moment, and I could see the woman underneath the icy exterior, someone who had perhaps sacrificed her own happiness for the sake of appearances. "I just want what's best for him," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then let him choose what that is," I urged, feeling a surge of hope. "Allow him the freedom to pursue his dreams, not the ones you've dictated for him." The tension hung in the air, and for the first time, I sensed the possibility of understanding, a bridge being formed between us. As I walked away from that meeting, my heart raced with a mixture of fear and hope. I had stood my ground, but the real question remained. Would Nathaniel's family accept our love, or would they continue to see me as a pawn in their game? The uncertainty loomed large, but I held on to the belief that love, real love, could break down even the most formidable walls. In the quiet of the night, I found myself dreaming of a future where we could be truly free, where love reigned over legacy, and where Nathaniel could finally be the man he was meant to be. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions, hope mingled with anxiety. Nathaniel and I had built a fragile fortress of trust, and while I desperately wanted to believe that my confrontation with his mother had shifted the tides, the reality of his family's influence loomed over us like a dark shadow. It was in those moments of unease that I realized how deeply intertwined our lives had become. I was not just a part of Nathaniel's world, I was woven into the very fabric of his existence. One evening, as we sat on his balcony overlooking the city, I could sense his restlessness. The gentle hum of the nightlife below felt like a distant echo compared to the storm brewing within him. I turned to face him, the soft glow of the city lights illuminating his features. "What's on your mind?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture I had come to recognize as a sign of his internal struggle. I thought confronting my mother would bring clarity, but instead, it deepened the chaos. "I don't want to hurt her, but I also can't keep living a life that isn't mine. It feels impossible," he confessed, his eyes reflecting a turmoil I wished I could ease. "Nothing worth having is ever easy," I replied, reaching out to hold his hand. "But you're not alone in this. We can face it together. You deserve to be happy, Nathaniel." He looked at me, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the flicker of hope in his eyes. "I don't want to lose you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've become my anchor in the storm, and I can't imagine a life without you." My heart swelled at his words, but the weight of uncertainty pressed down on me. "Then let's fight for it. Not just for us, but for the person you want to become. Your happiness matters more than their approval." Days turned into weeks, and Nathaniel began to take small steps toward reshaping his destiny. He started distancing himself from the suffocating expectations of his family, expressing a desire to explore his passions and pursue his own ventures. It was exhilarating to witness him reclaiming his life, but with each leap he took, I felt the backlash from the Caldwell family intensifying. The first real test arrived during a family gathering, an event steeped in tradition and expectations. Nathaniel had insisted I accompany him, claiming that it was time for his family to see me not as a pawn, but as an equal partner in his life. As we entered the grand estate, the opulence felt overwhelming, the walls echoing with whispers of disapproval. I could feel the weight of their gazes, cold and calculating, as if they were assessing whether I was worthy of their son. As the evening progressed, tension simmered beneath the surface. I could sense Nathaniel's discomfort, his resolve wavering under the scrutiny of his family. When his father approached us, a calculated smile plastered on his face. I felt the air grow thick with unspoken words. "Nathaniel, it's good to see you bringing someone like her into our circle," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "Though I do hope you're not making any hasty decisions. This family has a legacy to uphold." I could see Nathaniel stiffen beside me, anger flickering in his eyes. "Dad, this isn't about upholding any legacy. This is about my life and what I want, and I want her by my side." The silence that followed was deafening, and I held my breath, bracing myself for the backlash. Nathaniel's father's smile faltered, and I could see the realization dawning on him. His son was no longer the boy who would blindly follow in his footsteps. "Is this truly what you want?" his father asked, his voice low, almost pleading. Nathaniel nodded, the determination in his gaze unwavering. Yes, it is. I won't be a pawn in your game any longer. The tension crackled in the air, and for the first time, I felt the weight of my presence shift the dynamics of this family. The realization that love could indeed dismantle walls, even those built of cold steel and tradition, surged through me, igniting a small flame of hope. As the night wore on, I watched Nathaniel stand firm, a man transformed by love and a newfound sense of self. In that moment, surrounded by the glitz and glamour, I understood that we were not just fighting for our place in the world. We were fighting for each other, for a future free from the chains of expectation. And as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, I realized that love was worth every battle, every tear, and every moment of doubt. Together, we would carve our path, and in the end, it would be our love that defined who we were, not the legacy thrust upon us by a family unwilling to embrace change.